Exciting lecture by Grandmaster Ioannis Papaioannou. Today, he will be presenting a very interesting repertoire for whites after d4, knight f6, knight f3. And actually, our ultimate idea is to complete the repertoire after first move d4 that Grandmaster Papaioannou was presenting in his previous camps for modern chess. Probably many of you know that he already made 2 camps about Torre attack with d4, knight f6, knight f3. Just a second, can you hear my voice well? Because there is a comment that I'm muted. Okay, my voice is fine. Okay, so Grandmaster Papaioannou made several camps in modern chess about d4. He covered Torre attack after d4, knight f6, knight f3, and bishop g5 on move 3 after e6 and g6. Also, he covered d4, d6, e4, and gave universal solution for white against all the sidewinds and Pirc defense in general. Next, in the weekend, on Friday, he will start a camp for white about d4, d5, c4, complete repertoire. And actually, in order to complete everything, he just needs to cover this exact move order that will be discussed today. Since there will be many participants, there are many participants, obviously Grandmaster Papaioannou will not be able to answer all the questions, but when he asks something, you can respond in the chat. So without further ado, I'm pleased to welcome Grandmaster Papaioannou. Good luck and have a nice lecture.
Thank you, dear Grigor. So I would like once again to welcome you all to this fine and educative lectures on various opening themes or strategies. This time we will study, in order, as Grigor said, we will study. Just a second, please. There is some problem, small problem with the board. Let me fix it for 1 minute. So, we will study as we are heading for a Torre opening after the moves d4, knight f6, and knight f3. If g6, the proposed repertoire is with bishop g5, the Torre, and if e6, the proposed repertoire is again with bishop g5, the Torre, with different ideas this time, which are very interesting and, in my view, better than the London system. However, after this move order, after knight f3, Black can also play d5. This d5 move on the second move, first move knight f6 and then d5, is in fact different than playing d4, d5 on the first move. There, it is preferable for us with the white pieces, this move order, because after c4, we have more options. But at the same time, Black can also choose from many different openings. But generally, it's more advisable for white after d4, d5 to start with a c4. However, here we are heading for a Torre opening. So after knight f6, we are not talking about the move c4. We need to play knight f3. And all of a sudden, Black plays d5. Now, there are many ways that white can play. Unfortunately, he cannot continue with a Torre opening. This bishop g5 move is suspicious. You can take your opponent by surprise on the first game, but since if your game is then on the database, you cannot continue playing this move, because after this knight e4 precise move, and white has to play either bishop h4 or bishop f4, and now Black plays c5 followed by queen b6, and he has very, very good game. So we should not play bishop g5. So here I suggest the move c4, and we play the so-called principal chess. After c4, we will study the moves today, the moves c6 and e6. So c6 is the Slav defense. And here we will study a very practical and good solution, the Slav exchange, c takes d5. Once again, I should mention that taking on d5 with the knights already committed to f3 and f6 is slightly less favorable for white. In this position, if we assume that our knight was here and black's knight was here, our move would not have been knight f3. As you will see in the coming lectures in the weekend, we will start with this move, which is slightly different and, to be honest, a little bit more like a little bit better for white instead of knight f3. So here, this will be the subject of one of the subjects of the lectures in the near future, on the weekend. And here we will see that white has more options. However, for the moment we are here and we are committed with a Slav exchange. So this is how we will start our lecture. We continue with the move knight c3. And now the best move for black is, of course, knight c6. Black should be very careful to avoid such early moves like bishop f5, because when black puts his bishop on f5, two things are happening at the same time. First of all, there is no attack for white against black's king. Whenever we play after bishop f4, if you can imagine the move e3, then there is not bishop d3 available to ever attack the black king. So black's king is comparatively safe. But at the same time, the bishop goes to f5 and it abandons the queen side. So immediately white starts having idea about an early attack on the queen side. The best move here would be queen b3 with an advantage for white. Black has been careless here. The correct move is knight c6. And here we continue with the move bishop f4, which is pretty much the only sensible move. Once again, if we had to choose, we would rather have this knight here and the pawn on e3. This position is, let's say, it offers us a little bit more rich prospects, if I may say, with the knight here and with the pawn on e3. However, even here, without so much risk, white has chances for an advantage. Of course, make no mistake, chess is a draw. So if black plays very well, the position in the long run will be equal and the game will be a draw. So let us start with some concrete stuff and some games. So first I start with this old game. This is a correspondence game played in 1986. So let's start d4, knight f6, knight f3 was played, d5, c4, and we are talking about the Slav defense. So c takes d5, c takes d5, knight c3, knight c6, knight c3, and black continued with this passive move. We are, in other words, we are talking about this line here, bishop f4 and e6. Many players, especially amateur players, quite often prefer to avoid all theory by playing such passive moves. And here we will know exactly what to do against it. Our main goal is not in these lectures to memorize theory in 1.5 hours, but to, of course, you will see some very good concrete moves, but our main idea is that you will understand better the ideas of the Slav defense and of the Queen's Gambit coming from this move order, because after c4, if black goes e6, we'll come to that soon. Our proposed move will again be c takes d5. For the moment, we are here, take, knight c3. Let's suppose black played knight c6. But anyway, he started with e6. So bishop f4, knight c6, bishop d6. Now, the same position could occur after this move, knight c6, e3, and here we are. This is a passive position for black. Black can continue either with bishop e7 or with bishop d6, but he is, in all cases, he is worse, and the main reason is obvious even to the naked eye. White's bishop, which will soon come to d3, is much stronger, and it controls both flanks, and it's much stronger than the bishop on c8. So by transposition, after here, white has several ideas, but by far the best move is bishop g5. And let's check now this game with this passive plan with e6. So bishop d6, and white was right to play bishop g5. And after knight c6, e3, here we are. White has a very nice, small, but very nice and comfortable advantage with simple moves. Black castles, and now white has two equally good moves. He can play rook c1 or bishop d3. So he played rook c1. This is, of course, not theory anymore. From such a position, studying concrete moves would be a total waste of time. White has very easy play with rook c1, bishop d3, castle short, and all you need to do here is to maybe study some nice wins by white, and that's all. Nobody has to memorize anything. So here the move bishop e7 was played, and white, of course, played bishop d3. Let's comment now on some ideas. Let's suppose that black goes bishop d7, which was not the move chosen in the game. White will simply castle, and let's suppose that black plays a6. Here, anyway, white has an advantage. He has various ideas. One interesting idea is to play here and at some moment try to attack with queen d3 or with knight e5. White has other ideas as well. He can start with such a move, although he needs to be careful about these knight b4 ideas, which can be sometimes very good. And white can even play a weighty move like h3. In this position, on purpose, I will choose this move h3, which may not be objectively the best, because we need to point out something very important. Black plays b5. In various versions of the Slav exchange, the passive Slav exchange with a pawn on e6, whenever we see a6 and b5, our idea is almost always this move, a4, almost always. It's not obligatory. Here we can also play knight e5 with a very nice advantage. However, let's check on this idea. Just a second. Let's check on this idea. a4, he goes b4, and now our plan is to quickly play knight b1, for example, a5, which may not be the best move, and knight here, and our knight is very fast coming to b3. With our knight on b3, black's queen side is very vulnerable, and in the long run, this a5 pawn can be a target. And also, here, yes, of course, we are already a long way away out of theory. We can play a move like knight e5. This is a matter of calculation. We are, of course, out of book. We can play the move knight b3. If necessary, after such a move, we may even consider even the move rook a1, or just simply knight c5. So a very basic and important idea to remember is that after a possible a6 and b5 move, white can play a4. Let's check now how this game continued. Rook c1, here bishop d3, knight b4 is in fact a pointless move. White plays bishop b1. This procedure, passing the rook to c1 and then putting the bishop to b1, is called parking the bishop. So bishop d7, and white played a3. In fact, this knight on b4 is totally useless. All the squares that it is aiming at, all the squares towards our camp, a2 square, c2 square, d3 square, they are protected very well by our pieces. So in fact, the best that white should do is to simply ignore this knight. The best move is to castle, and we are going to allow this knight to stand on b4 for the rest of the game. If they would ask me, what would you play here with the black pieces? I would immediately see this knight doing absolutely nothing and say that I would play knight c6. For example, if black continues with a move like rook c8, then we will play this move knight e5. We keep on ignoring this knight on b4. It may stay there for the rest of the game, and we will continue with f4 and a very nice attack. Who knows, who would like to tell us this type of attack with f4? And actually f4 is very good, and even this is good. At this moment, bishop takes f6 is a bit unnecessary, but I would like to point out that even here white has a very nice advantage. The center is closed, and in the long run, white will either try to attack with pieces or even with pawns, with g4 and g5 5. Who will tell us? This is first question for the audience. Who will tell us what is the name of this kind of attack, famous attack with d4, knight e5, and f5? Of course, there are already many players who know the right answer. This is called the Pillsbury attack. Very, very good. By the American genius of the past, Harry Nelson Pillsbury. So we won't check this game anymore. After here, White has a huge advantage, and in the end, he won the game. So now let us proceed with one or two more games exactly in this line. Why? Because many players will be playing this line, many players. So here we are. Let's check this game. Just a second. Okay. So here we are. This is a game between Kiseleva Natalia and Schmidt is the player with the black pieces. White has a rating of 2350 and black has a rating of 2170. This game was played in the distant 1996. So knight c3, this is not, of course, our move order, but by transposition, we will get to the desired position. So here the correct move is, of course, e takes d5. However, this move was played, and by transposition, we got here again, after knight c6, we play e3. So bishop d6, the best move is again bishop g5, knight here, e3, h6, it's possible, bishop here, and a6. You will find such moves everywhere. Black can even castle short, for example. Then we play a move like rook c1 or even bishop d3. And let's study this position. Bishop here, two good moves for white, of course. We can castle short, or we can play a move like rook c1 here. And white has a comfortable advantage in all cases. An interesting plan for black would be to play here and put his knight on d6. Now, white is better. We can play a move like bishop g3 or just take on e7. All these positions are at least slightly better for white. By the way, in this position, the correct move for white is, of course, to castle short. Somebody may ask, should I start an attack with h4 and g4? Actually, this is a totally wrong concept. Why? Because here white has a good position without any risk. So for no obvious reason, he offers to black some counter-attacking chances. By definition, after h4, without black doing anything, without making one move, he has counterplay. So the correct move, we don't want to risk when we are better. The correct move is to castle short and play for a safe advantage. Let's check how this game was played. So here, bishop g5, e3, h6 here, a6, rook c1 is playable and bishop d3 is also playable. Bishop d3 was chosen. Bishop e7, once again, castling short or rook c1. Of course, we won't spend any time memorizing various move orders, first a6 or first bishop e7. So white castles and rook c7. Rook c1, sorry, bishop d7. And now white can choose once again between various plans. If you ask your computer, it will give some advantage like plus 0.40 or plus 0.45, which doesn't really mean so much as long as we understand the plans and the ideas. Even if it would show that it is about equal, it doesn't matter at all. After a few moves, we are on our own. Me, my opponent, and the plans. So here, bishop b1, as chosen in the game, was playable. Knight a4 is also interesting. Sometimes they even play a3, but look, by definition, here we are talking about a symmetrical position. So whatever white can do along the C line, black can do the same along the C line. So here, our idea is to play knight a4 and go here, but this a3 resembles a6. So if we can play here, black may also play these knight a5 and b5 ideas. So I would be skeptical generally about this a3 move. I would have either played bishop b1, and another interesting idea is this, knight e5. let's comment not on this move, on this idea for a while. So our plan is to play f4 or to take on f6 and play f4. And what happens if he takes? We take with the pawn, he goes back. We are very happy to exchange these bishops. And one very good thing about the Slav exchange variation is that it is a universal system and very rich system. We can play in both sides of the board. So now, all of a sudden, we may switch our attention to the queen side. For example, play here, forcing the bishop here, and then we have this nice square on d4. We will put the knight on d4, play, of course, the pawn on f4 if necessary to protect this e5 pawn, and white has a very nice initiative on the queen side, and he is clearly better. So we are very open-minded when we play this system, and our mind is always open, focused either on the king side or on the queen side. And of course, we are always ready to play a better endgame, always ready. There are chess players can be categorized in various different ways. One way to categorize them is there are players who prefer an advantage in an endgame and players who prefer an advantage in a middle game. For example, generally I prefer an advantage in the endgame. So here we are always ready to exchange queens at a good moment and play for a win, for a very nice positional win. I would like to show one last game in these lines. This is the game between two very famous grandmasters, Morozevich and Mamedyarov. This is a wonderful game. You should look it up also in the database and study it carefully. It came by a different move order. Knight f3, knight c6, bishop f4, and now black played a6. We will come to this line shortly after, and not e6. So here white has various possibilities like rook c1 or knight e5 as chosen in the game. In fact, in my view, this is an even better move, but white played knight e5, and now black played this bishop d7, which appears to be a bit passive. And again, by different move order, we reached the same type of position. So e6 was played, e3, e6, bishop d3, and black had to play bishop e7. White is better, so he castles, and here we are. I would like you to hear, or rather to see, some suggestions, please. What would you play with the white pieces here? I see at least two good moves. Who would like to tell us? Who would like to share his knowledge and his opinion? So, there are many interesting ideas. Pretty much you are all to the point. I cannot honestly and definitely say which move is better, but I can clearly say that between which moves we will make a choice. So we will choose between the moves rook c1 and bishop g5, possibly even queen f3, but rook c1 or bishop g5. So here white chose the move bishop g5 because he cannot play both moves. So he chose this. The idea of this move is that when he takes on e5, let's see why he played like this. If we play rook c1, now something deep is happening. Black may take here all of a sudden, and look what happens now. If we take with a bishop, black would like to block the c line. This bishop is, it appears to be passive on c6, but in fact it is rather solid, I would call it. And here we don't have such a strong attack in either side. And if we choose to take with a d pawn, on one hand, this is good because it forces the knight to a passive square. On the other hand, that's the idea of the move bishop g5. This bishop is stuck here, somewhat passive. I have played such a game long time ago, and I played this plan here, and after several moves, I played f4 and put the bishop on e1 and went to the other side, to the queen side. And in the end, I managed to win. However, that's the idea of the move bishop g5. Just imagine our bishop being here at this moment with white to move, obviously. And after, let's say, a move like h6, now we gladly take this bishop instead of having it on f4, and then we continue on the queen side. So that was the reason that white chose bishop g5 here immediately. Black played h6 and bishop takes f6. I will tell you one thing, the computer almost hardly ever likes this move, bishop takes f6, which also appears in other openings like the Torre with e6. Bishop takes f6, bishop takes an f4. The computer hardly ever likes it. However, this is totally playable and very good idea. And especially as some people may know already from the Torre with e6, where the position is similar in a way, especially when black's pawn is on h6, then we also have this idea. Having our queen in a square, very in an immune square, black is not able to chase the queen away. So having the queen very close to the opponent king is a luxury that we very rarely have in chess. So after a move like rook c8, for example, white played rook c1 and bishop e7, bishop b1. However, theoretically speaking, yes, rook c1 is the best move, but let's say that this idea is also playable. Queen h5, but with the pawn here, black would play g6 and possibly bishop g7. But with the pawn here, this move is not possible, and white has some attacking possibilities. Okay, so in the end, the game turned to be very positional, bishop b1. Of course, we don't play such a moves, knight takes c6 or knight takes d7. Yes, we have invested, our whole play is based on this strong knight on e5 after the moves f4 and e4. So he played here, but this changes everything. White now plays this move, which is very strong. Of course, a move like f5 changes everything. White got into a better endgame, and later he won a wonderful game, which I suggest that you study carefully. Now, let's go. Enough with this passive e6 story. Let's go and study some other game. So here we are. In this game, white started with knight f3, d5, d4, knight f6, c4, c6, and we are suggesting the line c takes d5. Let's see now some better moves for black. So knight c3, knight c6, bishop f4. Black should not play the move e6. Two good moves are here available for black. The move a6, like was played in this game. This move is always very useful for black, like almost always, because it stops any knight b5 ideas, which for the moment it was not a threat because black has queen a5, but in the long run, this may be a threat. So a6 is one idea and to stop knight b5, and the other idea, after getting the bishop out, black is better prepared to face a move like queen b3. At some moment, he may be able to play b5, or he may be able to play knight a5, or even rook a7 sometimes. So this a6 is a useful semi-waiting move. White played rook c1, and this is the best move in my view here. We are waiting for black to move his bishop to f5, and then we play e3. Let's check why. Can't I play e3? Yes, this might be your engine's first choice, and it is playable. However, black this time will not play this, but this move, and this annoying little move may reach to, black may play for a very small, let's say black will be only very slightly worse here after bishop g4, and eventually black can even take on f3. If we play a move like a6 and here, black can even consider taking here and playing a move like bishop d6, for example. White needs to play bishop g5, but after bishop g5, I see h6. This is not possible, h6, and if here, g5. So then we need to take here, and white has a very minimum advantage. Actually, this position is in fact equal. What is black's idea? In such positions, black wants to put a knight on d6 in the long run. And white also needs to spend a tempo to remove this bishop from this f3 passive square and put it here. And black has a satisfactory position. So here they don't play e3, they play rook c1, a useful waiting move. Now black should play bishop f5. This is a playable move. However, this time our knight on f3 is not pinned. So white will continue with knight e5 and some initiative. So we have already considered the move e6. How about this move? Let's briefly comment on this move. In fact, this is a horrible positional move, g6. To the untrained eye, I have seen even international masters or even grandmasters playing such ideas with a light heart. However, this g6 is a big positional mistake here because the bishop is in fact trapped on g7. It is not doing anything. It does not put any pressure in the center and it does not defend the queen side. So here white can either play e3 or maybe even h3. Look, he loses time with a pawn move. I can afford to lose time with a pawn move. I will play h3. For example, bishop g7, e3, castles, and bishop d3. Now white has a big advantage, and one of the reasons for that is standing on g7. This very passive bishop, which in the long run will be totally out of play. So we castle here. Yes, with a pawn on g6, there is not hardly ever an attack against black's king, of course, but we also have the queen side. White will focus his play on the queen side. He can play moves like queen here. For example, here we can easily maneuver in these squares at the absence of this bishop, or we can play other moves like knight e5 here, maybe even a3 intending b4, and white has very good chances on the queen side. This bishop now should have been here. For example, I play a move. This bishop should have been here and here. Black can do this, but of course he needs to spend 3 tempi on it. So let's go back. We are here. We don't want to play e3 because of bishop g4. We are waiting for his pretty much only good move, bishop f5. If he goes at e6, then he ends up in this passive game. So bishop f5 is the move. And now, as we have already mentioned, 2 things are happening at the same time. There is no attack on the king side against black's king, and there is good play on the queen side. Should we play queen b3? No. Listen to this rule of thumb. The move queen b3 is played only after e6, so that this bishop cannot retreat back to d7. Look, if we play such moves, then this is playable, and here even this is playable. And take, yes, bishop d7, black is winning. This is just one sample variation. So now we play e3. We are waiting for his move e6, which cuts off the return of this bishop to the queen side, and then we attack on the queen side. Somebody may ask, but is this possible now, even with a tempo less? Well, this is too much, and it also hurts the ego of our opponent. I don't believe anybody will play here, and white, after a move like h3, is possibly already better. So after e3, the correct move is e6, and now queen b3. If somebody wants a draw, he can play such moves, but in fact, this is a bad idea objectively, playing bishop d3. The best way to make a draw, let's say that your tournament situation is such that you are satisfied with a draw. The best way to make a draw is to develop your pieces very well, to play ambitiously good, sound positional moves and offer draw. But you will come under, you will start doubting, because if you play good, nice positional moves, then you will start thinking, why would I ever offer a draw? Why don't I just keep on playing and see? And we may even win in the end. So the move bishop d3 is playable. I have seen many games like this, and we exchange and peace negotiations begin. However, strategically, the correct plan by white is to attack on the queen side, and his idea is to make this bishop like to feel completely out of play. So the correct move is queen b3. Now that the bishop cannot return back, let me give you an example. This is losing this time, or it's a very bad move. Queen a4 check. You see, there is no bishop d7 this time. And after b5, we can take, bishop takes here, and now maybe there is even such a move, or bishop c7, but I believe this is good enough for a win, knight e5. Who will tell us after this? Of course, we play a move like knight e5 and rook c8. So let's waste 10 seconds on this move. White to play and win. Who will tell us, please? Let's see. Bishop takes a6 is only the second best move. There is a much better move than bishop takes a6. And even in winning positions, we have to be merciless. So the idea is correct, but the execution is not. The best idea is to slightly alter the move order. The best move is this. First taking here, bishop takes, and now we have a very strong move, of course. Now we take on a6, and black can resign because this bishop is coming back to b5, and black will lose a lot of material very soon. And what is the positional justification of these combinations? This bishop standing here. Can you do anything with this bishop here? Can you attack on the queen side? No, you cannot, but you can attack on the king side. So let's go back. So e3, he has to play e6, and then queen b3 was played. Now rook a7. And now white played knight e5. This is a very interesting and typical idea. The plan is to develop with bishop e2 castle short and play on the queen side and isolate the bishop on f5. So here this move was played, and bishop e2 castles and castles. Make no mistake, this position is not equal, and the Slav exchange is not an opening that is aiming for a draw, not at all. It is in fact a very interesting opening where we want to play for a win without risk. And let's say that at very high professional level, maybe the best defenses have been studied, although over there we also see very strong grandmasters losing in the end with the black pieces. But let's say at a level up to 2550, if I may say, 2550, this is entirely and totally playable and without any fear. Black, if he plays perfectly, he can make a draw, but this is the case against all the defenses. There is a question which I don't really understand. If you can rephrase it, please. So bishop d6, and our plan is to take here and start operations on the queen side. So the move is knight a4. Quite often in the a6 variations of the Slav, black is worse because he has played a6. So knight a4, look at this bishop. Now black would prefer to have it here. So the move knight d7 was played here, and white continued with knight c5. Very good idea. Rook here. White is anyway better. If black takes, now we may consider d takes c5, but only for a second. The correct move is rook takes c5, and we are enjoying a risk-free game. For example, b6, we put the rook here. Rook c7 is blundering a pawn, but we can also play a move like this, and this is a horrible, very passive position. This is not at all equal. We can play a move like, I want to jump, but I want to stop queen b4. So let's play a move like a3. And what is black's problem here? First of all, we have control of the only open file. And secondly, this bishop is shut out of play. Now white wants to have an intense game on the queen side, intense game, and establish a nice advantage, and then start winning space even on the king side. For example, a move like queen c6, take, rook here, and now a move like g4 and h4 and f3, king f2. White is much better in both sides of the board with very, very good winning chances. A risk-free game. So let's see what happened here. Rook b8 was played, and black takes here. And here is the problem with the a6 move. Queen b6. I have to mention that this is a game, a bleach game of reduced time control, but nevertheless, it still points out the weaknesses of black's position. So now we occupy the only open file. This bishop has influence on the queen side, and the same cannot be said by for the bishop on f5. In the end, white won the game. Let's check another game here. Let's check this game by Russian superstar Dmitry Andreikin. This is also a bleach game. So we are here. Okay, knight f6. Of course, c takes d5. White is better. c6. And now white decided to play this, knight f3, when we are back in normal positions. Bishop f4, a6. So if we play e3, the bishop is coming to c1. We have a question here. Let me answer this question. So let's suppose, let me answer this question fast. What happened? Sorry. So let's suppose that here, just a second. Let's suppose that we are in this position.
Ioannis, you should share the screen again, I think.
What happened? We have technical problems. Share screen.
Yes, you just need to share the screen again.
Okay. Is it okay now?
Now it's okay, yes.
Okay, very good. So we continue. I alter the position a bit just to show, to answer one question. So e6, bishop here. And the question, if I got it right, was what is happening in such a position, for example, after this move? Of course, we will play bishop b1. And after here, yes, white has to play a3. This is the answer. If the rook was here, we wouldn't play a3. We can postpone maybe a3 for some moves and start something of an attack here. However, I believe we should play a3 at some moment and bring back our pieces. Now, let's see what happened in this game. So rook c1 is the correct move. Bishop f5, e3, waiting for e6, which has to be played. e6. How about this move, rook c8? Yes, this is also possible. However, at some moment, black needs to play e6. He cannot do without e6. So what to play here? Two possible moves, either bishop e2 or knight e5. And here is maybe the moment, the best moment to answer some important potential question. What do I do after knight h5? Well, in the Slav exchange, after a move knight h5, which can be played in pretty much 1 million different positions, the correct answer is, of course, this is a very general rule, obviously, but the correct answer is almost always here. Almost always bishop e5. In any position, of course, if my pawn was here, then I would play bishop h2 and knight h5 would be totally senseless. However, after knight h5, this is hardly ever a good move. And same goes for this. They are playable maybe, but the best move, keep that in mind as a rule of thumb, is almost always here. And after f6, then we come back to g3 if there is no combination available. And if he takes here, now both ideas are totally playable. Knight takes e5 and d takes e5. It needs to be calculated. At this moment, d takes e5 seems to be winning by force. So let's go back. e3, e6. So bishop e2 was played. Queen b3 is also playable. However, in this move order, this appears to be slightly better. And white wants to play queen b3 in the long run and attack on the queen side. Black played bishop d6, so takes, castles, castles, and again, the same type of play. Should I play here bishop g5? Absolutely not. This bishop g5 is playable in such a position, and when with our bishop on d3 and an attack on the king side. With a bishop here, there is no attack against black's king at all, so we should focus on the queen side. The correct move is to take, castle, castle, and now queen b3 is not at all good. There is b5 now. Look, previously, with all the pieces here and the king on e8, after b5, white can almost always play knight takes b5 and win instantly. But here, this is very strong. Black is better. And then this is coming here with tempo, and black takes over the initiative. So what is the correct move and what is the plan? The correct move is knight a4. You see, black played this a6, and now it's not easy to play b6. Now black would prefer to have this pawn here, if possible, and the move b6 would sooner or later, at a good moment, would equalize the game. But with the pawn here, things are different. Knight a4 is the correct move, and what is the plan? To attack on the queen side and isolate the bishop on f5. So after here, knight c5 was played, he takes, rook takes. Yes, sometimes this can also be playable. Sometimes, generally, I don't like this move. For example, here, and immediately knight d4. If black takes on d4, then white is again much better. White has a good positional advantage because he wants to push b4 and a4 and create a passed pawn. However, after this, black may be able to play here intending e5 with counterplay. So the correct move is rook takes d5. And here we are focusing on the queen side. So white plays here. He is very happy, in fact, to develop with tempo. Here, rook f to c1, rook f to c8. And now, here is an important moment. White can possibly play queen b6. However, we need this bishop to be isolated. The correct move, or let's say the correct idea for white, is either this move, but sometimes this move, which abandons the center, can be weak tactically. Maybe there is such an idea sometimes. Yes, it has to be calculated. We are talking ideas here. So I want to stop bishop g4. Black would very much like to play here and maybe even capture this knight because this bishop is unemployed. It wants to find something to do. So white, instead of withdrawing with a knight from the center, white should play this move, h3. So this is, let's say, a very, very deep positional idea. We isolate this bishop, and of course, it has to be calculated. Maybe this move in this particular position is better, but the h3 is a very, very good idea. For example, here the move queen b6 was played, bishop g4, again white is better. He played this. However, white should have played h3 with a huge advantage. So this type of position, not this particular position, but this type of position is very common, and quite often we want to have it in our games. Yes, we isolate the bishop on f5 and we play on the queen side. Let me give an example. Let's say h3 and black plays, for example, such a move. Now we start adding pressure here. I don't know, maybe even this is very strong here, but let's say we continue with such moves, b4 and a4, or either b5 directly, and black is under huge pressure. He plays here, but then the knight is coming to d2. And now at a good moment, of course, I can even take this bishop on e4. White is better. Let's check now another game. Let's check the game between two young superstars, Vidit from India and Firuzia from Iran, who now plays for France. So c takes d5, c takes d5, knight c3, knight c6, bishop here, a6. The best move is rook c1 to avoid after e3, bishop g4. So we play here. He has to play this move. And now, only now, we play e3, e6. Can we play queen b3 here? It is playable, but chess is also a concrete game. So concrete knowledge points out that this move is more accurate. What is happening after here? As 90% of the cases, the move is bishop e5, as 90% of the cases. So bishop e5. You can find a move like bishop g5 here, but this. Let's see what happened now. Black, after e6, bishop e2. Black played this move, queen b6. This move is generally condemned by the computer for tactical reasons. Here, white castled, and he has a big advantage for tactical reasons. Now, black has to capture on b2. Otherwise, this move is coming with tempo, and black has lost 2 tempi. For example, after such a move, we develop our initiative, a very strong initiative on the queen side. For example, after here, the move is obviously a3, and b4 comes with tempo. Here, b4 comes with tempo, and knight jumps to c5. Here, we may consider also this move, dc5. This bishop is coming here. This knight is coming to d4. We may even consider, of course, rook takes or even b pawn takes. So here, the young superstar was caught unprepared. He took on b2, and white has a big advantage here. It's actually a winning position. Here he played a3. I believe there are 1 or 2 even better moves maybe. And queen b3, tremendous initiative. And queen c3, maybe Vidit was still in his preparation, and the game lasted very few moves. This is a move e5 that you don't want to make normally, but it appeared to be forced. So here, white won a pawn, and he still has the initiative, knight c6, because black has not stabilized his position. And here, some tactics, and in the end, black's position is very loose. This bishop on b4 is under attack, and this bishop on f5 as well. So white won. Is it winning? But it is very interesting. We check one last game here by a different move order. Rook c8, bishop e2. This is the game between Lequan Liem and Mishra Abdimayu. Both players are very strong. They need no further introduction. So again, knight to a4. We focus on the queen side. Here, knight is coming to c5, queen b3, rook c3. Should we play h3? In my view, this is an interesting idea. However, it may not be the first priority. Here, should we play h3? What is the theory saying? Absolutely nothing. There is no theory. We are already out of book. And these two super strong players, they didn't know any theory here, just general plans and ideas. Yes. So this h3 is positionally very good. However, it needs to be calculated. White chose this, and bishop is coming to g4. Here, knight is coming here, and takes. White still has some advantage. We would very much prefer to have this position, however. So here, black played f5, which might be a bit too much, and in the end, white won. Maybe I think it's a good moment for black to take here. Black instead chose this, and now after 91 takes, this position is not at all equal. White has a better endgame. So he played 93. There are weaknesses here and there, and as you can see, as promised, the Slav exchange is not an opening to play for a draw. It's an opening to play safely for a win. So in the end, white managed to win. Let's check now one or two more games. So let's go here. Just a second. Let's check. Just give me a second. Let's check this game which was played next to me. This game in the Greek league in 2022 between Grandmaster Heyman Andreas and the famous Grandmaster Alexei Shirov. Let's check what happened. Here, takes. White is happy to play a risk-free game. And in fact, in this game, I was very impressed by White's deep positional understanding and technique. So This is a different line this time. No a6, and of course, no e6. Bishop f5 directly. This is a different story. So here we see bishop f5. Now we can play e3. There is no bishop g4. And e6. Make no mistake. Here, the position is not with rook c1 and a6. Yes, previously we saw this position. Rook c1, a6, and then bishop e2. However, here, this move is possibly the best. Queen b3. Anyway, we had this idea since we saw after e6, the bishop was isolated on f5, and black plays bishop b4. This is by far the best move here. And now white has two choices, bishop b5 and knight e5. Both moves are good. Both moves offer white some small or big advantage. But if black knows perfectly what he's doing, really perfectly, at a level of more than 2700, then in most cases, the game will be a draw. Black can forget about winning. However, he has objectively good chances to make a draw from a level over than 2700. For example, in this game, Alexei Shirov lost, although he knows this position so well. So bishop takes c3, queen takes castle. There is not rook c8 here because of knight e5 with a big advantage for white. For example, here we take and we play this move, preventing him from castling. And then we want to castle short and focus once again on the queen side, where the black is lacking pieces. Yes, this bishop is horrible on f5, while the other one on f4 controls very important squares. So here, this is concrete. Black played here. Bishop takes c6, rook c8. Yes, this is concrete theory. Knight e5, knight g4. This is a position where almost by force white will be a pawn up. However, with perfect play, black can make a draw. So queen b4 and rook takes c6. This is a mistake. Playing bc6 is a mistake. Let's check. Oh, what is happening? Just a second. I need to share screen again. There are some small minor technical issues. So portion and share. So here we are. Bishop takes c6 and just a second. Here we are, bc6. But here white has a very nice risk-free game. Look, make no mistake. This is not at all an equal position. After f3 and rook here and the bishop is coming to c5, or the rook is coming to c5, white will double the rooks on the c line and gain even space on the queens, on the king side if necessary. And white is enjoying a very nice risk-free game, big advantage for white. So Shirov took with the rook, queen takes b7. This is, of course, preparation. All these moves are preparation. Queen a5 check is also playable, or queen c8. So black can play this position, sure, but of course, black can only count for a draw here, which he failed to do. White knew very well what to do in this endgame. They got this bishop endgame. Here, check, and here white played a very nice move, a3, although a4 was also playable, but a3 is a very nice move. And bishop c2. And let's see, what did black play here? Let's spend not so much time. So white played the move b5, very nice positional move. Black will win the b pawn, he will lose the a pawn, and there is still a lot of play here. With perfect play, as they say, it's a draw. However, there is still a lot of play, and white managed to win. So, generally speaking, these are the type of advantages that we are aiming for. Let me just show one more game here. Of course, there is a game cramming Anand, where Anand made a draw with black, I would say without so much trouble. Now, this is the game between two very, very strong female players, Nana Jagnije with the white pieces and Antoaneta Stefanova with the black pieces. White managed to win. They got to this position. and black played here, knight h5. Now, in my view, as almost always after knight h5, the correct move is bishop e5. And this is what happened, bishop e5, f6, bishop g3, and now white is better. All these pawns on f6, they are all weaknesses. White wants to play e3, and in the long run, he may even play e4. So bishop e6 was played. No matter what black is doing here, he, or rather she, is much worse. So with simple moves, e3, bishop d3, rook c1, we won't be in a hurry to castle short here because there is some dynamics along the edge line. There are some tactics. So here, queen b3, white has a free initiative on the queen side. Here, bishop b5, very good moves by white, castles, castles, and yes, this is a nice advantage for white. Black is fighting only for tricks, let's say. White is much better, and in the end, she managed to win. Now, enough with this queen's gambit, with this Slav defense. Let's go to the queen's gambit. So we are here after d4, knight f6, knight f3, heading for a Torre, d5, c4, and e6. And here we are. This is objectively a totally playable position for black. Once again, we would rather have this knight here and have our other knight develop on c3. However, we are with knight f3 and we need to know what to do. Now, there are several options. Objectively, the best move is either knight c3 or g3. But after knight c3, black can play the semi-Slav with c6. Black can play c5. Black can play Ragozin with bishop b4. He can play bishop e7 or this Vienna opening, d takes c4. So many positions to study. And of course, white can also play g3. But then huge theory starts. So we suggest the move c, here the move c takes d5. So by a different move order, we are here, and we suggest the move c takes b5. So in both cases, after c6 here, we take on d5, and after e6, again, we take on d5. Now, we reach some kind of queen's gambit exchange variation, and we are happy with that. Usually, after d4, knight f6, if your opponent is a d5 player, usually he will play d5 on the first move, and then we will have all the chances to reach even more favorable positions. However, here we cannot exclude this possibility. So this is possible. Now we take it, and e takes d5. The reason why this position is slightly inferior for white, rather than having the knight here and the other knight develop on c3, the reason is that we need to put immediate pressure on black's center with knight c3, and then we are able to stop such ideas with bishop f5. Black wants to consolidate and play a move like bishop f5. So here, white has several ideas. He can play bishop g5, bishop f4, of course, knight c3, after which black can play c6 or bishop b4. However, here I chose this move, queen c2. Queen c2 first. First, we play this move, and then, of course, we will play moves like either bishop f4 or bishop g5 or knight c3. The reason why I chose this move is that I want to force black to play g6 if he wants to play bishop f5, because it is important for black to put his bishop in this diagonal. Let's check some possibilities. For example, this check here. We can also play knight c3, but this appears to be the best. And surprisingly, usually in chess, we develop our knight on c3. However, there must be a very specific reason to develop it on d2. However, knight takes d2 here appears to be very good. I was surprised when I was studying such positions that this knight is standing perfectly on d2. And now we arrive at the typical position. Both sides have interesting ideas. I have covered with many details these type of positions in previous lectures, also from Black's point of view. Let's say that in such position there is one universal idea for White. White doesn't want to exchange Black's light square bishop, especially for a bishop, but not even here with this knight. So generally we want to avoid exchanging this light square bishop. So here, and in the long run, we will play with minority attack, possibly with b4. For example, he goes here, knight, okay, the computer's suggestion is knight g5. However, this would also be a good move. Let's suppose that Black plays a move like this because he sees the danger. Then we castle, and he plays bishop e6, for example, intending knight bd7. What Black needs to do, he needs to put a knight on d6. However, this is not by itself enough for equality. Black also needs to exchange some pieces, which here does not seem to be possible. White will start with a move like b4, and ideas with knight e5 intending f4 also seem to be very interesting. We are already out of book, and we play here with typical ideas. So queen c2, there are some other ideas like, for example, c5, which does not seem to work. We take it here, and we are better after queen a5 in this endgame. We are better. Both after bishop c3 or taking on c5. These tactics do not work. And a move like g6. Let's study this move for a while. Black urgently wants to put his bishop on the f5 b1 diagonal, sorry, h7 b1 diagonal. And that's why he plays g6. However, this g6 is, does not come for free. It also causes weaknesses. So the best move here is bishop g5, but also this is playable. Bishop f4, threatening this pawn on c7, c6. Very soon in such positions, you will be out of book, very, very soon. So here we play e3. Black has to play bishop f5, because here we are threatening bishop d3, of course. And then the whole concept with g6 is totally pointless. He has to play bishop f5. Then we can play bishop d3, possibly even queen b3. And this position is, I would like to have the knight on d2. Whenever possible, I like to develop it on d2. And this position with perfect play, it is equal. However, both sides have chances. Here, a move like h3 is good. And should we castle long? Generally, I don't like it. I prefer to castle short. So here we will castle short, and we have plans with the minority attack with b4 and some ideas with f3 and e4. Maybe the position is very slightly better for White, and we keep on playing. So this was g6, bishop f4. However, after g6, we can also try this plan. And for the moment, this is not possible because of queen b3, and Black has problems how to keep everything, to control everything. So he has to play a move like c6. Again, we play a move like knight c3. And for example, bishop f5 is a mistake here. Black always needs to be careful when he plays bishop f5. Look, here there is no good defense. We are threatening. If he goes b6, this is not his idea, or b5, he causes many weaknesses. So he cannot play queen b6. For the moment, Black should protect his knight in order to be able to play bishop f5. So the correct move is bishop e7. Let's see this move, bishop g7. Once again, in similar fashion, like in the Slav exchange, this bishop on g7 is misplaced. However, the problem here is not as big as in the Slav exchange, because in the Slav exchange, there is more intense play on the queen side. And when there is intense play, very active open play, then a misplaced piece is a big problem, because there is not enough time to move the piece 2 or 3 times in this open position and improve its positioning. That is why why in the Slav defense the bishop on g7 is a bigger problem. So we play e3. We are threatening the move bishop d3. He needs to play bishop f5. He is on time. This is a mistake. Bishop d3, and white has a clear advantage. So black needs to play bishop f5. And now both ideas are playable. Bishop d3 is interesting. And here we are playing for a small advantage. For example, we castle here, and we may play this b4 move immediately. You see, his bishop should have been on e7. b4, we are threatening to play b5, and let's check now this possibility. Black plays here with the obvious intention to play knight b6 and knight c4, but white has a very nice idea at his disposal. He plays a5, a6 with the same idea of playing knight b6, and who will tell us the typical move for white here? What do you think white should play here? Of course, many correct answers. The correct move is a5. Sometimes even e4. e4 is a correct idea. This is true. However, maybe not in this position. a5. Our plan is to maneuver. Now you see this knight is totally pointless. Our plan is to move the knight here, and go to c5 after all. Of course, he wants to put a knight on d6, but this is not so easy. He goes, for example, here we play knight a2. He plays here to unpin the knight on f6 and put it on e4 and on d6. We will play such a move. And after knight e4, we will play bishop f4. And of course, whenever we see a knight on d6, if he is not blundering c6, we will capture this knight. And here, a move like h3, white has a nice advantage. His idea is to play rook c2. And then let's suppose we play some moves here. So our idea after rook c2 is not this. Our idea is possibly first to use this square for the knight, put it here, and then double the rooks. So this is how we get some chances. Now let's go back once again. Various move orders, various transpositions. What remains is the understanding of the position. So after c6, after g6, which is very similar with c6, we can play both bishop f4 and bishop g5. We play here. Black needs to be very careful when he goes bishop f5 because of these queen b3 stories. So he plays here, knight here. Again, bishop f5, we have queen b6, b3, and he has problems. So he plays this move. This is the correct move. We play e3. We are threatening bishop d3. He needs to go here. And now bishop d3, we are fighting for a small advantage. But there is another very interesting idea, this one, queen b3. Black will play queen b6. And this position is still, in fact, quite playable. We do have chances for some advantage. For example, we can continue with moves like knight d2 and capture with a knight, or such ideas. The computer generally likes these ideas with h3 and g4 very much. Let's check this position here, and we play a move like g4. And we have good chances to gain some initiative. For example, here we will play this move. Soon we will unpin the knight and put it here. And these double pawns do not seem to be a problem. So here white is fine. We may even consider taking here on e4. So queen b3 is also possible with chances for a nice advantage. And this is how #1 player in the world beat #2 player in the world of that time. Carlsen beat Nepomniachtchi with the white pieces. Carlsen very much likes to play these lines. So we are here once again, queen c2. We were following g6. Let's play c6 first. c6. So knight c3 this time. And now black can play bishop e7, can play g6. In my view, the best move is g6. However, such a move is playable, for example. But here we have a very nice advantage. We will play bishop g5, for example, knight bd7. This is blundering the pawn here. So knight bd7, e3, castles. bishop d3, and very classical stuff. We won't castle long here because black has ideas with b5. This is unnecessary risk. Sometimes we can castle long, but mainly with our knight developed here. But our knight was on f3 already on move number 2. So white to move, we should castle short, and we have various ideas here to play for a minority attack with rook b1 and b4, to play e4, and sometimes to play a strategy with knight e5 and f4. Even this is possible sometimes. So such a move has been played. Also rook a to b1. This is not about, of course, memorizing moves anymore, but about ideas. After here, you can see a very nice idea. Bishop h5. So the meaning of the move rook a to e1 was not just to play e4. Here there is another very strong idea for white, very typical idea. Who can give us a hint? What should white play here? What do you think? Not e4, but a better move. So the correct move, surprisingly, is f4. Look at this move. Very typical idea. f4. Our plan is to play h3 and g4. Theoretically, the e3 pawn is weak, but he cannot threaten it. And also, theoretically, e4 square is weak, but nobody can come to e4. It is very well controlled by our pieces. So f4 intending h3 and g4 is another, as we call it, counterintuitive idea. Our natural instincts suggest that we don't play this move. However, quite often this is very interesting. And then complications begin after g5, for example. Maybe we can either take it or play bishop g3. This is not theory anymore. We can possibly play, I don't know, this, or just take on g5, and complications begin. So we are here once again, queen c2, c6, knight c3. Let's try some other move, bishop e7. Once again, black abandons the idea of g6 and bishop f5. Two good moves once again, bishop f4 and bishop g5. I choose, for example, bishop g5, castles, e3, and this is a very classical and theoretical position. You can find many hundreds of games in this opening. So we play h3 or castle, and we have a nice advantage. For example, knight e4, bishop f4 is usually the move. We castle short, and we are doing very, very well. So c6, knight c3. Let's say he tries. So if they tell us play again, the move will be bishop g5. He can try this. All these positions are playable, of course. We did not, we are not winning by force or anything against the queen's gambit. So bishop f4 is only move. Here we can take it, and e3, castles, or bishop e6, for example. And we need to be aware of one thing. We do not want to exchange his light square bishop. This is the way to think. So here we can play h3, or we can even castle short, and after bishop g4, move the knight, play h3. For example, such moves. This is in fact a game here. Castles. Again, we have a small advantage. We have ideas with a3 and b4. We have also these ideas sometimes, and put the knight here together with rook c1. We also have these ideas here and possibly put the knight here, sometimes even g4. So we have a small advantage, and the game continues. This is exactly how it is supposed to be. White gets a small advantage, and he continues to play. And finally, after the suggested repertory queen c2, although I repeat, here bishop g5 and knight c3 are totally playable and quite similar. After queen c2, he can play here knight c3, he can play g6. We have already commented on that. Bishop g5, There is no bishop f5. Every time after bishop f5, there is queen b3. He needs to be careful when to choose bishop f5. So bishop e7 is the best move. e3. Maybe even this is interesting to take and play e3. And if bishop f5, bishop d3 this time, even this is objectively it is about equal but playable. Here it's mostly about who has the easier play. Or we can play e3, and once again, two possibilities. Bishop d3 is playable. It has been played in many games, and queen b3 is also playable here, and a move like knight d2. Let's check now. This is pretty much the theory. It's mostly plans and ideas. Let's check this game between Kramnik and Giri. So here, yes, we take on d5. Kramnik play queen c2, c6, knight c3, bishop e7. Now, of course, the move bishop f4 is playable and the move bishop g5 is playable. However, Kramnik chose a very scientific move, the move h3. The idea of this move is that after g6, he wants to play this very strong move. He is waiting and he wants to develop the bishop on h6. And here we can play the well-known queen b3, maybe even queen c1 is playable here, but queen b3, queen here, e3 intending g4, and white has very good chances, once again, for an advantage in this type of position. Here, take, for example, take bishop d3. Of course, we are not afraid of any bishop b4 check ideas. We just move the king. And here, white has good chances once again for a small advantage. King e2. You see our pawns on b3 and b2 may look strange to the untrained eye. However, black cannot approach them with his pieces, and white has good chances. Sometimes he can even put the knight on d3 and push b4 himself. And here we play a nice, we enjoy a nice risk-free game. Let's see what happened in their game. Giri didn't play g6. He is a big expert in every opening. He waited for this bishop f4 move, and only now he played g6, which is the correct idea. Once again, such positions are playable but passive, either with our bishop on g5 or with our bishop on f4. We have good chances for an advantage with simple play. Here, knight b d7, bishop d3. There is absolutely no need to castle long and risk. So here we castle short and we are doing very well. Here, a move like bishop h2, for example, here, take, and rook a to b1, intending b4. It is very difficult for black to exchange his light square bishop. This will take too much time. And so white has good chances for a small or even a bigger advantage. Let's suppose that after here, let's say after here, there is an idea with knight h5, of course. For example, knight b d7, here, knight h5. Yes, we can take it and play a move like bishop e2 this time, and then castle short, and it doesn't really change the nature of the position. Black wants to put, and this is, you see, these positions, they have thousands of transpositions, thousands, literally. What matters is the understanding of the position. Nobody knows concrete theory here because it's absolutely unnecessary. These positions are played with plans. So white wants to play b4, black wants to exchange his light square bishop, and of course put a knight on d6, and the fight is on with chances for both sides. Objectively, white is slightly better. Let's check now one more game here. Save. Let's check one more game. So let's check one game by Carlsen. This is the game between Carlsen and Nepomniachtchi. Here is the idea. He takes on d5. He played knight c3, which is similar to queen c2. So here bishop f4 here. This is now a different plan by Carlsen. He played h3. Sometimes he plays also knight h4. This is an interesting idea as well. And let's check now. By a different move order, they reached this. Here, bishop e2, and here. And you can guess what Carlsen played in this position by a different move order. What do you think he played? Who has the answer? He played, yes, he played queen b3 against Nepomniachtchi in CQFL Cup 2022. Black took here, a takes b3, and bishop g6 was played. Possibly white wants to take on sooner or later on e4. So here, Carlsen played here. Possibly he is still in his preparation. And now he took here, he played f3, and white has a nice small initiative, and he played for many hours and for many moves, and in the end he managed to win the game. Of course, nobody can promise an easy win. This is chess. These are very serious openings for black, the queen's gambit. So a long and tough battle is ahead. Let's check now another game and a different plan by Carlsen. This is the game, rapid game between Carlsen and Vidit. So we are here, cd5, ed5, not queen c2, but knight c3, c6, bishop f4. Black needs to play bishop f5. This is the best move, sooner or later, or let's say the best plan. So here, takes, e3, and yes, the correct move is bishop f5. And now, black is threatening to take over the initiative little by little. White needs to know what to do, but of course, white is the best player in the world and he knows what to do. The only good option for white in this position is this queen b3. It connected with the move knight h4. Remember this move knight h4 in order to take over the diagonal. So black has to play this. Black can also play a move like this, bishop e6. But then white takes over the diagonal. He will play this move, for example, castle, or maybe knight f3 immediately. And once again, we are in this typical position, for example, here, and the knight is on d6. However, there is one problem with black's position. He has not exchanged his bishop, his light square bishop. So here we would play a move like rook here, for example, and the game continues. Maybe knight e5. Just make sure that you understand that this is not a matter of memorization anymore, and transpositions are literally countless. So here, this is the only good move, and now white takes it, and he plays bishop d3. Also, this is totally playable. g3 first. The idea is not necessarily bishop g2. Maybe we can play g3 and put the bishop here, and king f1, king g2 at some moment. So there are some problems for black because he cannot develop his queen side. He cannot play knight bd7. So castles. Should white play here and attack? I would call this unnecessary risk. So white castle, he has a small advantage. For example, here he played this move to avoid queen b4, and white is, as expected, slightly better. He puts his pieces like this. He is ready at a good moment to play e4. Black is slightly worse. He doesn't yet know how to free his queen side. He cannot play here, for example, because b7 is hanging, and white has a very nice small advantage. So these are the main ideas. Of course, you can find in the database countless games with various plans of the queen's gambit. I believe we should be very happy with this move order here. C takes d5 in this position, c takes d5, e d5, and now either queen c2, which is my suggested move, or starting with knight c3 and then bishop f4, bishop g5. We saw the main ideas. The most desired setup for white is if black does not care to play bishop f5. Black should somehow play the move bishop f5 sooner or later. If black starts playing, for example, here, or let's say here, if black starts playing such moves, then he will end up in a passive version of the Queen's Gambit, either with bishop f4 or with bishop g5. When we say passive, it doesn't mean that it's not playable. Yes, you may even call it solid. So we cannot refute the Queen's Gambit today or ever. So I believe, I would like to believe that you like these ideas, and which are aimed to avoid the tones of theory by other variations and get playable and nice and interesting games to try, positions to try them in your games. I would like to thank you all very much for your participation in this lecture.
Thank you very much, Ioannis, for this excellent and very interesting lecture. I just wanted to say that this lecture will be available tomorrow on the YouTube channel of Modern Chess, and also you can find it in the section about free lessons in our website. So you know that everyone will get access to the recordings, and people who attend the camp about d4, d5, c4 will also get the PGM file of this lecture, but everyone else will have access to all the recordings. So the PGM files will need extra work by Ioannis that he will do for the upcoming camp that starts on Friday. So tomorrow, just check our YouTube channel and you will see the recordings. Thank you for attending and have a nice evening to all of you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.